G'day Internet, welcome back to another video. For as long as there's been home computers, people have wanted to be able to take their machine with them, and this started pretty early on. In 1981, Osborne released the Osborne 1, which is what I consider a luggable, so it's things like the Compact Portable, the TRS-84P and the K-Pro. But these were basically full-blown machines with a little CRT and a handle. They were big, they were heavy, and they required mains power. But things did progress, and it was only 1985 where Toshiba released the T1100. And this is a machine that you and I would legitimately recognize as a laptop. It was small, it actually fitted on your lap, and it ran on battery power. And things from there kind of got smaller and more refined and smaller and more refined. Then in 1996, Toshiba released their Libretto range, and they were properly small. This is an example here. This is from 1997, and this is the 50CT. Now, unlike other machines of this form factor, like the Atari Portfolio, this is a full-blown computer. This thing runs Windows 95. This particular one isn't without fault, but let's take a look at what the world's smallest computer from 22 years ago had to offer. So what kind of punch did the little 50CT pack? Well, it came with a Pentium 1 75MHz processor, 16 meg of RAM upgradable to 32, and an 850 meg hard drive. It also, though, had a 2 meg Chips and Technologies Super VGA graphics adapter and a Yamaha OPL3 SAX sound card. Accessories for the machine included a 1.44 meg floppy drive through the PCMCIA slot and a docking station which gave you parallel serial and VGA out. But given this is 22 years ago, its size is absolutely brilliant. It's only 20 centimeters across, just over 10 centimeters deep, and only 3.3 centimeters tall, and it only weighs 850 grams. Squeezed into that tiny little space is a 6.2 inch active matrix TFT and a 1.2 amp per hour battery. Now, like I said, this particular one isn't without fault, so let's take a look at what needs doing. When I got my little Libretto, this is what I got. I got the machine, the docking station or port replicator, if that's what you want to call it, and the PCMCIA controlled floppy disk. What I didn't get is the little case that it comes in, which I couldn't care less about, and the power supply. Now, this simply uses 15 volt DC, but there's a gotcha. If I move that out of the way, this is where it plugs in here. This is the barrel plug. But it's a really weird size center pin. I think it's 3 or 3.2 mils center. And most little adapters you get for your multi-voltage generic power supplies don't come with that. So what I ended up doing is making just a short tail where a plug that I do have goes in here, and that's the correct size socket for this guy. So I now have a power supply. But like I said, this isn't without fault. Someone's obviously been in here before because a few of the clips are broken, and obviously the power supply is missing. Now, this has been upgraded to 32 meg. Maybe that's when the clips got broken. But the other thing that's wrong with it is this, and if I plug it in, now you're not going to be able to see this screen under the lights, but if I turn on, its old spinny hard disk has seen better days. It's quite noisy, and if I move my microphone closer to the machine, now I am told that the hard drives in these were quite noisy, but the thing is, the Windows 95 install on this is very old and it's very slow. And I think that's got partly to do with the installation and partly to do with the old spinny hard drive. So you can probably imagine what we're going to do with this. Yep, we're going to put in a compact flash. So let's get started with that. Now the installation on here I don't care about. I've got installation media and I've got all the drivers. And installing Windows 95 on this with just the floppy disk can be tricky. I don't have the full set of 15 3.5 inch discs for Windows 95, but because we are putting in a compact flash, that can make our life a lot easier. So let me start by killing the power because the battery hasn't got much charge in it, and let's pull this thing apart. And there's the insides of our machine. There's the PCMSA slot. There was the hard drive that we just pulled out. And that's kind of your lot. All we need to do now is this guy just needs to go in here. And there we go, we're done. That's the end of the video. No, not quite. We are, however, going to leave the base off because we are going to want to get to and from the compact flash for a few times. So let me get this started and we'll be back in a second. So partly for my own sanity, but also because I can't capture VGA, I've plugged the machine into its little docking station. I've got the 3.5 inch floppy drive connected and also a mouse and an external monitor. We're going to start off by booting from a Windows 95 startup disk. So that simply goes into the drive and we turn it on. And without too much fuss, we are at the command prompt. This particular boot disk has CD-ROM drivers, and obviously we don't have a CD-ROM. So the first thing we're actually going to want to do is simply run fdisk. Yes, we want large disk support. Now let's take a look what's on this compact flash. There is nothing. So we want to create, we want a primary DOS, it's going to scan the drive very quickly. Do I want to make this active? Yes. And that should be it. We'll exit fdisk and we'll Control-Alt-Delete. We're back at the command prompt. Let's just run fdisk again and make sure I created the partition. Yes, I want large disk support, and let's just go 4 for display partition information. And there we have an 8 gig partition on the compact flash card. Now all we need to do is, to make our lives a little easier, we're going to go Format, C, colon, and we're going to go /S to copy the system files across and make the compact flash bootable. Right, with that done, we should be able to simply flip to the C drive, and there's nothing there. There's Command COM to get it to boot, and that's pretty much it. But what we should be able to do is pop out the floppy disk and go Control-Alt-Delete, and it should boot from the compact flash now. And there we have it. We have a booting compact flash. What we're going to do now is we're going to pull the compact flash out and transfer a whole stack of files, including the Windows 95 installation files and drivers and a few other bits and pieces, from my main computer. So on the right here is the compact flash card that I've stuck in my main computer. Just a quick note, I ended up having to redo all the formatting with a 32 gig one because the 8 gig one kept eating its file allocation table every time I pulled it out of the Toshiba. But them's the breaks. 32 gig is obviously massive overkill, but it'll do. On the left here, I've simply mounted the Windows 95 C install CD, so I've just mounted it, and all we're going to do is over here we are going to create a new folder, and this is simply the way I do it. Now look, there's a million ways to do it. This is the way I've always done it, so there you go. I'm going to simply create a directory called winInst, and I'm going to grab all of these and I'm going to copy them across. Right, with that copied across, let's go back to the root of the compact flash card. And if I come up here, on my desktop I have a folder of drivers, so let's quickly grab these and stick them in a... what do then? Let's grab these and put them into a folder called drivers. And while we're at it, let's also create a games directory, and somewhere over here on my data drive I do have a backup from last time I was playing around with this, and that's the right one, it is, and let's grab that. Right, that's it. Let's put the compact flash card back into the Toshiba. And here we are back at the command prompt, booted off the compact flash in the Toshiba. And now it's really just a case of, what do I call it, win inst, and simply running Windows 95 setup. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through the entire Windows 95 setup. I think we've all got better things to do with that. So let me run through and we'll go from there. So that's everything that needs to be installed. We've got drivers. I've dropped in my usual little boot menu to load DOS sound drivers and stuff if you decide to go boot into DOS instead. And even down to nice little things like an OEM logo and some little information. So let me get this all screwed back together and we'll take it for a quick test run. And here we are all back together, and with a half-decent graphics chip and a sound card, we can even play a little bit of Quake 1. And because we've got some proper DOS sound drivers, we can even run Doom with proper sound. And that's the incredibly tiny Toshiba Libretto 50CT, now with a new hard drive. Now, one of the reasons I did put the hard drive in is because it's quite simply, it's quieter. The compact flash is going to use way less battery life because the battery does actually work in this as much as I've been running it off mains power. And hopefully in the end more reliable than the old spinny drive. But for a machine of its size and taking into account that it is 22 years old, I'm really impressed. I mean, you can see it here running Quake 1 demo. Yes, it's in software mode and the screen has shrunk down a bit to save a bit of processing power, but it does do it. And Doom, for instance, runs like a dream. I actually wonder how good this would be, especially running in a fairly native 640 by 480 resolution on the screen, how good it would be, considering it's also got a sound card in it with DOS drivers, as a really mobile DOS gaming machine. The mind kind of thinks about these things. Anyway, if you liked the video, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.